So one of the things that I want to talk to you guys about in this Back to Basics program is to kind of get you guys out of big chain grocery stores and to buy less processed stuff. So in this series, I'm also going to do a few cooking videos, which I know is probably not the norm, but these are just some simple recipes that you can do instead of purchasing all of that processed food that you would normally do. So today we are actually going to make bread. So I have chosen a honey wheat recipe that makes like a really nice soft bread. I have made this recipe before and it's turned out pretty good. So I'm going to do that again for you today. So the first thing that you're going to need, which I should also say, I found this recipe on Pinterest. So if you are on Pinterest a lot, you can find all kinds of recipes for bread, pasta, and all that kind of stuff. I'm also planning on doing a couple of pasta videos with you and maybe even a coffee creamer video. So if you're like me and you like coffee creamer, there's a way for you to make that yourself so you don't have to purchase that every single time you go to the store. So the first thing that you're going to need is 1.5 cups of warm water, and you're going to put that in your large bowl. And then you're going to need some yeast. You can get store-bought yeast from Kroger or Walmart or something like that, or you can also go to some of those bulk food stores. That's where I usually like to get mine, but I did not have any, so this is what I have. This is just pasteurized yeast that I got from Kroger. And I'm going to need 1.5 teaspoons of that. So I'm just going to take that and I'm going to sprinkle it over top of the warm water. And then I'm going to let that proof. So what that means is I'm just going to leave it sit for about 5 minutes, and then once it's ready to go, then I can start adding in my other ingredients for the bread. Okay, so now that that has proofed, we are ready to start adding the other ingredients. So this one called for honey. I get my honey from a neighbor who has his own bees, but you can use store-bought honey for that as well. So I'm just going to add that in. And then it's calling for 1/4 cup of honey, so that's how much I just added. And then it calls for 3 tablespoons of softened butter. So I'm going to go ahead and add that in. And then I am going to stir that up a bit until it's got a nice smooth consistency and the butter and the honey is all mixed in, and it will leave you with kind of a powdery, thicker than water material. Okay, so now that I have my butter and everything blended, I'm actually going to go ahead and add this to my mixer. I'm going to use my mixer just because I have it. You do not need to use a mixer if you don't have one. You can always do this by hand. It just might take you a little bit longer. Since I have one, I'm going to go ahead and use it. So I went ahead and added my mixture over to my mixer, and I am going to blend in 2 cups of flour. So this is where you decide if you're going to do wheat or if you're going to do a white bread. That is completely up to you. I'm doing whole wheat, so I'm using whole wheat flour. So I'm going to add in 1 cup and let it kind of blend in a little bit, and then I'm going to add another cup. Alright, and then I am going to put that on medium and let it go for just a couple of minutes. Okay, so I let that beat for 3 minutes, and then also I added 2 teaspoons of salt as it was beating. Now, what I'm going to do next is add just a little bit more flour. As you can see, it is still pretty runny. So I'm going to add an additional 1.5 cups or 1 3/4 cups of flour, just so I can get that right texture. You're going to want your dough to pull away from the sides of your bowl as you add in this extra flour. Okay, so as you can see, I switched the head of my mixer to my bread hook, so I'm going to use this to knead. You can knead by hand if you want on a floured surface. Just make sure you put down a lot of flour so it doesn't stick to your hand so much. And so I'm going to go ahead and use my mixer again with my hook, and it's going to knead for about 10 minutes. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to have to watch it because there may be a possibility that I need to add some more flour. And we don't want it to get too soft or too gooey. You want it to stay at this nice, consistent, doughy, dry, doughy texture. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, so now my bread is nice and kneaded. I always usually add just a little bit of flour at the end, and then I knead it myself just for a minute or two, just so I can make sure that it has that nice consistency. What you're going to do next is you are going to grease a loaf pan. So I am just going to use non-stick spray, and I'm just going to coat the pan really well on the sides and everything, just like that. And then you're going to put your bread in the pan. So this is why I like to knead it a little bit myself too, because there's always a little bit on the bottom. So I'm going to put that in there. And then I'm just going to form it to the loaf a little bit. It doesn't have to be perfect. This just kind of gives it a little more space as you go to let it rise. So that's what we're going to do next. So now that I have it in my nice greased pan, I'm going to take a little bit of plastic wrap or cling wrap and loosely cover it. It does not need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be tight or anything like that. You just want to try to keep the moisture in. And then once you have that ready to go, you are going to let it rise. So you want to let it rise. You can place it in a warm spot. I usually put it on my oven just because I feel like that's the warmest place in my kitchen, even though the oven's not on. Or anywhere else that you think that there's going to be a lot of warmth to it, that's where you're going to place this. And you are going to let this rise until it is double in size. So that may take 30 minutes, it may take 45, it may take an hour. It just depends on the heat and how much moisture is locked in here. So that's what we're going to do next. And then once it's ready, once it's already risen, then we are going to go on to the next step. Okay, so once you take your bread out of the oven, you can see it kind of makes this hollow sound right here, and that means that it's finished. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut it up so you guys can see what it looks like. So you can see some of my pieces are a little small. That does happen if it doesn't rise all the way. That could be a number of different things, so that's just something to look out for. It probably has to do with the yeast. If it didn't put enough, or I didn't let it rise long enough, or it didn't proof as long as it should have. So that's it for now, and I will see you guys next time.